Hey, what is up, mortals? It is I,
The Spirit of Ice.
here with a new video for you today. Welcome to part 6 of What If Deku Was a Green Lantern. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So, we begin.
As Izuku and Uraraka walked inside the villain base, they took the opportunity to discuss their strategy. Say, Deku, do you have any ideas on how to beat them? Uraraka asked as they waited for the combat trial to commence. While she had learned yesterday that his real name was Izuku Midoriya and not Deku, a mistake she apologized over, she had thought it sounded a lot like, "You can do it," and asked if the nickname could stick, which Izuku allowed. After all, it was his first proper nickname, even if it started as an insult and was given to him by a girl. Ugh. Nodding, Izuku answered her question to the best of his ability. "I'm certain I can beat Bakugo in a fight, or at least fight him pretty evenly. We used to spar when I first got my quirk, and I've been watching him for years, so I know how he fights. I also know that he wants to fight me, so he'll be coming for me when it starts. While I fight him, you need to find the bomb. Eiji Kiroshima has a hardening quirk, so he'll most likely stay near the bomb and try to stop you. Now, you're faster than him, I think, so you can probably maneuver around him, or just touch and immobilize him. He seems pretty gung-ho about fighting fair and square, so you shouldn't have to worry about an ambush. But if something does happen, radio me and I'll try to restrain Bakugo. I intend to fight him fair and not just tie him up. But I'm not going to throw the entire thing just for a personal victory," Midoriya explained. Wow. That was pretty good. Yeah, sounds good, she replied timidly. She would have responded in a normal manner, but she was completely blown away by how detailed this plan was. I mean, she was expecting a loosely put-together plan of attack that left a lot of room for improvisation, but this pretty much told her how the whole thing would go down. The only thing left to chance was the possibility that Kiroshima would be able to stop her from reaching the bomb, but even that seemed unlikely. It seemed like the whole trial was catered in their favor, to the point where she felt bad for the villains. But before she could fully think of anything that made her seem more intelligent than a child, the voice of All Might suddenly announced the beginning of the test.
And start! The teacher bellowed.
"All right, let's go!" Izuku shouted as he raced through the building, Uraraka barely keeping up with him. From somewhere around them, the sound of explosions could be heard. Bakugo was closing by. Closing in.
Deku!
Bakugo screamed bloody murder as he came flying out of the corner, firing a large explosion right at the green boy's face. In response, Izuku erected a bubble shield that negated the attack entirely. When the smoke cleared, Katsuki scowled in annoyance. "I thought you wanted to fight, Bakugo! Did you really just try to jump me? After I didn't just cover the entire area in foam and restrain you the second I got in here?" Izuku taunted with a smirk. From behind him, Uraraka noticed his hand signal for her to separate and find the bomb. So she quickly ran off to the nearest stairwell while Deku took care of Bakugo. With her gone, they could now go all out down here. "Well, now that your little sidekick is out of the way, let's get this started," Katsuki sneered before charging again. "Gladly," Izuku thought as he leapt out of the way and constructed a small ball that he threw at Bakugo's face. Not suspecting anything, Bakugo didn't try to block it, instead only moving his head slightly. A mistake on his part, as the ball suddenly exploded in a flash of light, blinding the boy. In front of him, Izuku grinned while sporting a pair of green sunglasses he'd just made. Using the opportunity, he took the time to delve into his imagination and find something to give Bakugo a good fight. With his newfound, revolutionary idea of using ideas that weren't hero-focused and drawing from a variety of influences, something you'd never expect someone with the power to create anything to do, he was able to recall something from a game he'd played a few years back. An enemy-turned-ally that was perfect for this idea. Within seconds, he had an idea that would easily stalemate his opponent.
Deku! Quit screwing around and make something to fight man-to-man!
Katsuki screeched as he slowly opened his eyes, and came face to face with Blade Wolf? The construct that Izuku made was identical to the deuteragonist from the popular Metal Gear Rising game that came out so long ago on the first HD consoles. Coincidentally enough, Katsuki had also played the game and had some trouble with his boss at first. It was, ironically enough, one of the few things that troubled him enough to make him rage quit. "What the hell?" he muttered as all the forgotten frustration he had had with the boss came rushing back to him. Izuku placed his hands on the back of his head and smiled, enjoying how frustrated Katsuki looked right now. "Blade Wolf, new directive. Give Katsuki a good time. Just don't kill him." "Objectives confirmed," the construct replied while facing his inferior opponent. "Prepare to fall." Not waiting for the boy to respond, Blade Wolf charged the Ahen blonde, forcing him to go on the offensive.
Crap!
Bakugo thought as he jumped back, using his explosions to propel him even further back and barely dodging the chainsaw that was aimed at him. From a few meters away, Izuku's confident facade faltered, and his smile turned into a nervous grin. "I talked a big game and all, but I was pretty freaked out the whole time," Izuku muttered. In truth, while he had been excited about finally fighting Bakugo, he had also been somewhat of a nervous wreck. This was his first real fight, after all. It would be different if he decided to fight A.G. Kiroshima, who had a quirk that made him tougher to fight, but Bakugo was a regular human in terms of durability. If Deku forgot to hold back... Of course, he knew that a lot of his other classmates would be nervous if it was their turn. But they weren't him. They didn't have to go first either, so that was another bit of pressure. The whole reason he thought of Blade Wolf was because it was a semi-independent entity that could function on its own so long as it and Bakugo were in eyesight, or in a place he could reasonably imagine with his mind. That, and the fact that it's supposed to be weaker than the rest of the bosses in the game. So long as he stayed close to the fight, he could keep Bakugo distracted and not deal any major damage until Uraraka won them the match. Speaking of which, a few levels up, Uraraka was racing through the building while looking for the bomb. She hadn't had any luck so far, but she was getting closer to the top, so she assumed that she would find it soon. "Uraraka, do you read me?" From her earpiece, she could hear Midoriya calling out to her. Putting a finger to it, she responded to him. "Deku! Yeah, I read you. How's your fight with Bakugo going?" "It's going okay. I made a boss from a game we both played a few years ago that gave us a lot of trouble, so he's busy fighting that. I have to stay close by so the construct doesn't dissipate, which leaves me open if he can get past it. But aside from that, it's going fine. Have you run into Kiroshima yet?" "No," she said as she continued running. "I haven't found the bomb either, but I'm getting close to the top." There was a silence on the other end before Izuku gave her a slightly strange request. "When you run into him, can you try and keep track of how, for lack of a better word, moral he is? Like, if he seems heroic in an all-might way as opposed to an endeavor-type attitude." Uraraka stopped running as she took in his words. It was safe to say she didn't expect to perform a psych evaluation on her new classmate for her new friend. Sure, I guess. If you really need it. "Then you can count on me, Deku." She turned off her earpiece and resumed running up to the top, ignoring the bizarrety of Midoriya's favor and pressing on in an attempt to find her opponent. She knew that what she'd been asked to do wasn't normal, but they were running out of time. At this point, if the bomb wasn't with Kiroshima, then it would be easier to tie him up and radio Deku to tie up Bakugo instead of trying to find the—
"Stop right there, hero!"
Uraraka screamed out of fear as Kiroshima jumped out of a corner and nearly scared the daylights out of her. As she jumped back and nearly fell down the stairs she just came out of, Kiroshima quickly abandoned his villain persona and grabbed her by the wrist to save her. Fortunately, he was strong enough to pull her back up, allowing her to catch her breath from what otherwise would have resulted in fractures and/or broken bones. As she breathed heavily in relief, the redhead took the time to make sure she was okay. Hey, Uraraka, are you okay? I totally didn't mean to scare you that bad. I would have just waited out in the open if I knew you'd get so scared. But while he was apologizing for his horrid mistake, Uraraka realized she had an opportunity here. And she was totally allowed to get a petty victory after he almost got her killed, right? She screamed as she threw her open hand onto the boy's chest, taking him by surprise and allowing her to activate her quirk on him. Because he had been startled by her scream, he had let go of the hand he had been holding and had nothing to hold him down, resulting in him floating straight up to the ceiling.
Hey! That was so unmanly! Using my concern to get a sneak attack? There is nothing heroic about that!
He screamed, annoyed at both her underhanded tactic and the ease at which he had been immobilized. Uraraka rubbed her head and smiled nervously. Sorry about that, but you scared me pretty bad a second ago. So maybe you can consider this payback? Fine. You got me fair and square. He sighed. Uraraka ran off to find the bomb, leaving Kiroshima hanging around. If he was here, one floor below the top, then it had to be around here somewhere. Several floors down, Izuku and Katsuki were still engaged in their little cat-and-mouse chase.
Fight me like a man, Deku! Don't use a boss from a stupid video game!
The blonde shouted as he fired another explosion at Wolfie, only for the Emerald Android to ignore it and lunge at him again. Aw, come on, Kachan. I'm a Green Lantern. Imagination's my strongest weapon. You, of all people, should know that, considering that you're the second human to wield the ring, the Greenette taunted, remembering the day after he had gotten the ring. This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN allows you to change your IP address, making it harder to track and securing your privacy. In addition to providing safe passage through the web, you can also expand the reach of your favorite streaming services like Disney+. If you're from the United States, you won't be able to watch any of the MCU and Sony Spider-Man movies. But by switching your location to Japan, you can access them whenever you want. Check out the link in the description to get 3 extra months when you purchase the 12-month subscription plan that costs $99.99 a year. This deal is for a limited time. And thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. About a year ago, Bakugo had been trying to beat up Midoriya again when Ganthet appeared out of nowhere and stopped it, giving Izuku the ring and flying off, never to be seen again. While Izuku had been, at the time, accosted by the mysterious voice of the ring, he'd completely neglected Bakugo and inadvertently left him to go home. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have mattered if one considered all the times the blonde did the same. But Izuku had felt guilty about it as he woke up the next day from a very long sleep that came from him heading to bed as soon as he had gotten home, even ignoring his dinner. While he took the next day to listen to Aion and find out what the hell was going on with the ring and the blue guy, Bakugo had been eerily silent, unsure if the day before had been a dream or not. But that changed the second he saw Deku looking at the glowing ring, the same glow that came from that blue man. When he cornered the wimp about it after school, he'd gotten the stupidest explanation. Frickin' aliens. Obviously, he called the nerd out on it, only for the ring to fly off his finger and onto Bakugo's. Then that thing started speaking to him, a primordial beast that didn't use any filters like it did when speaking to Izuku via the ring. Instead, it spoke directly to Bakugo's soul and rejected him. Katsuki Bakugo, you do not have the morals necessary to be a Green Lantern, much less the host of Aion. You would be better suited as a Yellow Lantern that rules through fear. Or perhaps as an Indigo so that your narcissism and hatred can be stripped from your heart. Izuku Midoriya has been chosen for both his exceptional will and strong character, and you will respect my choice. Do not cast your doubts upon me ever again. It had then flown back to Izuku, leaving the young boy completely shell-shocked. It was the same as All Might rejecting him. No, it was as if a god had denied him. The only thing he could feel after was a growing seed of resentment and bitterness in his heart, and maybe just a touch of envy. Bakugo stopped moving, prompting Izuku to mentally stop Blade Wolf, so as to make sure that the chainsaw didn't cut through the spiky-haired teen. Why did I say that? Why would I say something so horrible? Izuku wondered, as if he realized the magnitude of what he had just said. Why in the hell had he done that just now? That was, well, maybe it wasn't worse than the lifetime of bullying Bakugo inflicted on him, but it was still horrible to remind him of the time a godlike being told him in no uncertain terms that he wasn't worthy of the prestigious privilege of being a member of an intergalactic police force. Had Izuku really been so caught up in appearing confident that he forgot about basic human decency? I think I get it now, Bakugo spat out, prompting Izuku to look at him with a slight flinch. I've been thinking that I could just blind the mud and rush you, but I realized that wouldn't make sense. You're the one controlling it. It's obvious you can only have it go to places you can see or construct a mental image of. Otherwise, you just stay away from us. And since you stopped it before the chainsaw hit my chest just now, it's obvious that you've only had it attack my arms or other areas that wouldn't hurt too much if nicked. In other words, you're holding back. And you know what? So am I. So let's just stop that now and go all out, huh? Izuku trembled as Bakugo looked up, his eyes holding a crazed gleam in them. Pointing one of his gauntlets at Deku, the blonde continued. I'm sure you know my explosions come from my sweat, right? Well, I had these gauntlet mades with the ability to store the excess. He smiled at Izuku's terrified expression. Well, don't you remember the first thing you did with that ring? Izuku's mind went back to their first fight with the ring, before they began sparring with each other. In the heat of the moment, when Bakugo wanted to see what a space cop could do, an inexperienced Izuku had accidentally shot him with a beam of raw energy. It seemed that he wanted to repeat history itself here. If that was the case, then Izuku would deliver. Gathering his will into one solid mass, Deku unmade Blade Wolf, jumped back to create distance, and prepared to shoot his rival. From the control room, All Might and the rest of the class watched in trepid anticipation. The fight had seemed pretty even, if not skewed in the hero's favor, with how easily Kiroshima was taken out, and how Bakugo couldn't do anything. But now, it seemed pretty clear that the two boys were about to launch into something akin to ultimate moves, or at least their most destructive attacks. While the students were unsure as to whether or not they should say anything due to how even it seemed in their belief that All Might wouldn't let it go too far, the man in question was getting pretty scared. Evidently, young Midoriya had progressed a great deal in a week or so, and if young Mirio's, or rather, Adara's explanation of the Green Lantern ring was accurate, then it was pretty clear that if they went all out, it would cause a lot of damage. Of course, with how powerful Ion was supposed to be, it was clear that the boy hadn't mastered the ring yet, so Bakugo wasn't completely incapable of winning, especially in a straight-up anime finale, as the Green Lantern's power was fueled by their concentration. In other words, if Midoriya faltered, he might get hit instead, which he should be able to survive, but that was still a risk All Might wasn't going to take. There was a silver lining, however. No one noticed it since they were all focused on the two stars of the show. But Uraraka had found the bomb on the top floor and was racing to it. Jumping the gun slightly, All Might decided to announce the winner as she was running towards it. Hero Team wins! He shouted as she leapt at the bomb. But it was too late. While All Might was calling out the victor, he overlooked something. Both boys were too focused on each other to listen to him, so when he screamed out to them over the intercom, it had the opposite effect and caused Bakugo to pull the pin on his gauntlet, prompting Midoriya to shoot a pressurized ray of will energy in response. But there was something else he overlooked. Izuku's attack was an anime beam attack. Bakugo's super explosion was an explosion, meaning that it was made of fire and not pure energy. and when fire is hit by a strong enough burst of wind, it separates, allowing Izuku's attack to travel to its target with no resistance. Bakugo's manic grin morphed into a horrified frown as he realized what was going to happen a split second before it did. He tried shifting the arm that fired into a shield, but the beam destroyed the gauntlet the second it made contact, sending the boy flying to the other side of the room. But it didn't stop there. It was so powerful that he was sent through the concrete wall and plummeted 3 stories down. The only thing that saved him was the other gauntlet that flew off his hand as he hit the wall, miraculously landing on the ground before him and breaking his fall, just barely.
Oh God!
Izuku screamed as he looked at the hole he'd made and jumped down without a moment's hesitation. Without even thinking about it, he grabbed Bakugo's body and made a beeline to the nurse's office. After Izuku had gotten Katsuki to Recovery Girl, All Might had made sure that everything was fine with the boy before returning to the rest of the class.
All right, before you ask questions. Yes, we're still continuing with the other 9 battle trials. Young Bakugo might have gotten injured, but he's still going to be okay. And young Midoriya is staying with him while Recovery Girl is tending to him, so he'll be fine. Now then, same as the first match, you'll be trying to either retrieve or defend the bomb. I'd also like to stress that since I neglected it before, lethal force is not permitted. If you even think that your attacks could cause permanent injuries to your opponents, try another approach. Because if you lose it, just remember that it's better to have a moral victory in these situations than doing something irreversible. With that out of the way, let's go!
With a jovial shout, All Might started the combat exercise back up again, while simultaneously reassuring the shaken students. Even Uraraka and Kiroshima were able to suppress their guilt over being useless in helping Bakugo when confronted by All Might's contagious optimism. The only one who wasn't mentally revitalized was the boy that almost killed his childhood frenemy.
Thank you for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, I'd like to thank our patrons, BD Flames, Ethan Davis, Terry Chills, Shifter Meals, Adam Zagel, Zil, XAV Beats 03, and Joshua Phelps. Secondly, I'd also like to thank all of our YouTube members. Toya Costa, Rob the King, Sith Lord 906, CF2364 and Knuckles, Rimuru Tempest, Angel Juarez, Donald C. Stewart, Bryant Greer, and Demonetized Fox. Thirdly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has you covered. We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the stories of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Fourthly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in today's excellent content productions. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, I'd like to extend an invitation to join their team. The only caveat is that we only accept members from 16 years or older to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Once again, I've been the Spirit of Ice, telling all of you to have a great day.